G'day, Steve here, Woodworking Masterclass. I have been asked by a member of the Woodworking Masterclass channel to show them how to set and tune a plane. So I've got a number 7 Stanley here, I'm just pulling the bits. We'll get all the bits out, put it all together, tune it up and get it working. So here goes. When you buy a new plane, it's really advisable to pull it all apart anyway, just to make sure that everything's clean and works and hasn't got, for example, heaps of rubbish underneath the frog there. You clean all that out. You can use compressed air, but I'm not turning my compressor on because it takes too long to load up again. What you can do, I use the screwdriver on that. Many times you can use the cap iron. It'll fit into that screw there. Inspect everything, make sure it's all nice and clean. Look at the bottom. It's important to make sure that that's flat on the bottom. I always make sure that my end of the frog line up with the back end of the mouth, like that. To adjust that, you use this screw here that's behind it. Sometimes they're brass, sometimes they're steel, but you can just actually what we'll do, see, this hasn't been done for yonks, so I'll actually grease this one up. And you just rub the thread on the wax like that, and then screw it into that hole there. Use a screwdriver if you wish. You can take the handle off. I don't like taking these handles off really, because a lot of times you'll never get them to be tight again, and it is so easy to strip the thread out at the base of the handle in here. And if you strip that thread, it causes you a few dramas. So if you want, you can still get the wax and just rub that there and there, it's not going to hurt. Set that down nice and firm, and then adjust it. So if you slide your finger down there, it's a continual slope from the frog to the back of the mouth. Same with the screws. A little bit of candle grease won't hurt. I would use candle rather than, I suppose you could use dry lube, but I'd use that more so than a petroleum oil or a car grease, because that way it's going to stay dry and lubricated, whereas if you're using grease, there is a chance that it can bleed down and stain your timber, which again isn't the best thing. Okay, so when you're tightening those up, just make sure you've got it nice and square. That's pretty good there. And by doing that, you're actually giving full support to the back of the blade. Because if you have that sitting over too far over the mouth, when you put your cap iron on, you will preload the blade, so it can have a tendency to bend in the middle. Likewise, if you've got the frog too far forward, then you're going to get chatter at the end of the blade. So just have it so it's just nice like that. With the blade, I might just give this a quick strop if I can find this strop. Sharpen that whichever way you prefer to sharpen. My personal preference is I like the back to be flat. I know there's a school of thought out there that if you put a 5-cent piece underneath and then you flatten the back, you're getting an edge. That, to me, that's just pure laziness. Once you flatten the back of this, it's fine. It won't need flattening again. So get in there, and if you have a look at mine, it's flat. Again, with the chip breaker, make sure that this part here is nice and flat. Even if you've got to get a stone and just give it a couple of licks on the stone like that, remember to rock your body, not your arms, and that'll give you a nice firm edge. And it stops shavings from going between the chip breaker and the blade. And you just put it through that hole, like that. It's not a good practice to do that and pull it back, because you're going to damage your cutting edge. So pull it over this way and then slide it down the back of the blade like that. And that way you're not going to touch your cutting edge. 3/32 of an inch is what I allow between the chip breaker and my cutting edge. You could measure it, but after a while you get to know. And that's pretty close there, I think. You've got to double check it. Actually, I'm going to bring it back a little bit. And make sure that it's square. Because what's going to happen now, when I crimp this down by tightening this screw, it's going to flatten out and creep up the blade a little bit. There you go. That's not too bad. That will do. Now the laterals, which is this thing here, slide that on and just wiggle the lateral a bit and it'll seat the blade, because a lot of times you'll put it in and then you'll go to use the lateral and it'll go clunk and all of a sudden you've got too much blade hanging outside. Just put it in there loosely, wiggle the lateral from side to side and pick it up, put the cap iron on. And you don't want it that you have to hit it with a hammer to tighten it, and you don't want it that it flops really loosely. So just a nice firm pressure like that. Turn it upside down, and if you have a look, I've got way too much blade out. So now with the adjuster screw, just back that off and sight down the sole. I can't give you that shot. If you sight down there, you can just see a hair's width of blade standing up, but it's high on this end. So to even that up, remember that with the lateral, where it's high, push that lever in that direction. And what it'll do, it'll rock it over. So I push it so then it's high on the other side, and then I bring it back to central. You can just flip your finger over it. It's working. I'm going to put a little bit more tooth out on that, a little bit more blade, and I reckon that is good to go. So I'll get a bit of timber. I haven't done any adjustments except for what you just saw, and I'll see how close we are. Straight away I can feel that biting in, which is a good thing. And if I push, I think that's going to be good enough. Now, judging by the size of the shavings, I can either back that off or make it a bit heavier. That's not a bad shaving for a number 7. If it was a smoothing plane, I would have it a bit finer. But for a number 7, and what you can do to test your blade is go right over onto this side, if you're getting a full width shaving of the timber, and then come onto the other side of the blade. And then of course the middle. Okay, let's try a full width shaving. There you go. So that's doing the full width. So nothing wrong with that. And that's how easy or how complex it is to set a plane up.